This is a companion tutorial video for the penny doll pattern available on the Blue Whimsy Etsy shop. Okay, so for our skirt, we want to take our long piece of fabric and we'll put the two ends together, the two short ends together. On our pattern piece for the skirt, we have a gap that's shown. We need to leave that gap open. This gap is going to be used to insert the elastic into the skirt, so I'm just going to mark off where that's supposed to be so that stays open. So now, when I go to sew this, I'll sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance along that edge, but I won't sew all the way to the end. I'll skip over that gap so that I can leave it open for the elastic later. Okay, so even though I didn't lift my, even though I didn't cut the thread in between, I have not sewed that gap. So that gap is still open there. That will be ready for the elastic. And I now need to press the two seams. So I need to press this seam along the top for the waistband, and I need to also press the bottom for the hem. Alright, so we have our seam on the back of our skirt, so we're going to press that open. Then, where our gap was, that's going to be, so that's at the top here, that's going to be the top of our skirt. So what we want to do is first fold that over 1/4 inch all the way around the top, and we want to iron that top 1/4 inch. All the way around the top of that skirt, just a little section at a time. Once you've got that 1/4 inch iron down, what you want to do is you want to fold it over another 3/8 of an inch and iron it one more time, and that creates a nice tunnel for that elastic to go through. And once you do that, you can see that the gap we left open is also ready for us to put the elastic into. Okay, so about another 3/8 of an inch. There we go, so that creates the waistband for us. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom hem to create a finished hem. So I'll fold it over another 1/4 inch, press it, and then fold it over the 3/8 of an inch so that we can stitch along that for a nice finished hem. I have my top waistband and my bottom hem pressed on my skirt, and so because it's already a loop, I'm going to make it a little easier to sew by taking off that attachment of my sewing machine so it's a bit narrower. And I'm going to start my hem, or my waistband seam, very close to the edge. I want to give myself as much room in there for the elastic as possible, so I sew extremely close to this edge. Okay, so the waistband is finished, and then the bottom hem. Again, you can sew close to the edge just to give a nice finish to that hem. Alright, so there we have our skirt. All we need to do to finish that off is thread the elastic through the waistband. So I have a 5-inch piece of elastic here. I'm going to stick a safety pin through one end of it. And I'm going to start by threading it through, there's the top, I'm going to thread it through the gap that we left when we sewed that first seam on the skirt. And so just by pushing it through there, I've left enough of a tunnel that it can easily go through. Now you can either pin it, I might suggest pinning it just at the end here for now, just to make sure that it doesn't actually go anywhere as you're pulling the rest of it through. So I'm just going to grab a pin. And just use a pin to keep it there. Now as I pull this through, I'll just be careful not to poke myself, but as I pull this through, that's going to stay anchored and I'll be able to pull. I might just change the direction of this. It's a bit dangerous the way it is. There we go. And just continue to pull that safety pin through. So it will start to gather up, which is exactly what we want because we want a nice flouncy skirt for our doll. So as I'm getting closer to the edge, I'm going to take this end of the elastic and I'm actually going to just flip it back the other way. That allows that gap to be open on the other side for the elastic to come through as I'm finishing up. And there we go, comes right through the end. Okay, so we have our two ends of the elastic. I'm just going to take the pin out of this one and the pin out of this one. And I'm just going to pull a little more slack there so that we have a little extra to work with. And what we want to do is with our machine, we want to put those ends together like this, and we want to stitch them closed, or we want to stitch them together. This can be a little bit tricky just because it is hard because there's so little elastic to work with. So you might have to pull a little bit hard, but try as much as you can to line it up nicely and then stitch it. Okay, you can see I have my elastic lined up under my foot. I'm just going to sew a couple of seams, just a couple of stitches back and forth along that elastic to keep it secured. Maybe one over a little bit more. And now, after that's sewn shut, what I can do is I can just pull that into, and it should pull right into that gap there. So it should go right into that waistband. Push it in there nicely. And then it disappears. So just even out the gathering of the skirt around the whole waistband. It's up to you at this point if you want to. You can hand stitch that shut there at the edge so that the elastic is not showing. It is all finished seams, and so if you want to just leave it like that, that's okay too. It's up to you. Alright, so we can put our skirt on our doll. And the shoulder wrap. So for the shoulder wrap around the neck, I would just tie it in a nice little knot. And there we have our doll.